أهل بيته وأصحابه الأخيار. يقول الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. First of all, my dear brothers and sisters, we thank Almighty Allah for gracing us with this wonderful moment, an opportunity to discuss about ourselves and to see how best we can connect to build our communities. The theme for this conference, my dear brothers and sisters, is leading change together. And I would like to take these few minutes to look at positive change as a civilization and a way of life. Positive change is non-negotiable. It is an instruction from none other but our beloved and merciful Creator. The verse I've just quoted is a very powerful verse from the Holy Quran. Quran 13, verse number 11. Allah says, Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin. Indeed, Allah will not change the conditions of people hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim, until and unless they change what is in themselves. It simply means change begins with you. Change begins with us. And of course, together. If we truly want to be effective when it comes to the changes we are looking for, then we need to do it together. And that is what Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala again in Quran 5 verse 2 highlights. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And cooperate in righteousness and piety. And do not cooperate in sin and aggression. I would like, my dear brothers and sisters, to leave you with some practical tips on how to lead change together. You see, we live in a very complex world. And the best way to leave our mark as Muslims, and most especially as British Muslims, is to join hands together and lead that change so that the next generation who will come after us will be proud of us. Two things I would like to highlight. Number one, where does the change begin? Where do we begin? It begins by enhancing our togetherness and unity. And for us to do so, I have 3 practical tips in this regard. The first tip is to appreciate the expertise in Muslim communities across the country. We have so many talents. We have so many expertise. Look at each and every of important fields of studies, of profession, you name it. So the first and foremost thing, if we truly want to achieve unity and build our togetherness, is to appreciate and recognize our expertise. Number 2 is to identify our awlawiyat, our priorities. There are so many things out there. We cannot achieve all, as philosophers mention. What you cannot achieve all, you cannot miss all. So we need to identify, as British Muslims, what are our priorities in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, in the next 20 years. Where do we want to see ourselves? That's number 2, if we truly want to enhance our togetherness. Number 3 is to uphold the principles of engagement when it comes to disagreement. Adabun naqd. We're not from the same background. We're not of the same academic intellectuality, if you like. So we have differences. But to enhance our togetherness, we need to uphold the principles of engagement. Now the last point. How do we achieve the change? Easier said than done. So I'd like to share some practical tips in this regard. Okay, now we're united. We are together. We are enhancing our unity. How do we embark on a journey of bringing about positive change in our communities? Number one, there are 4 things we learn from children. The first practical tip are 4 things we learn from children. Anyone who has a child will appreciate this. And these 4 things sum up one practical tip, which is tajdeedu taqat, renewal of our energy. There must be renewal. I cannot be doing the same thing and expect the same results. It is impossible. British 50 years ago is not British today. No, that's too far. Britain 15 years ago is not Britain today. So I need tajdeedu taqat, renewal of energy. And I learned that from my sons and daughters. How? Number one, when you examine a child, you realize that a child has something called tagirun nashata. A child cannot focus on only one activity. Energy. Children have unbelievable energy. Number two, children are extremely inquisitive. I must be inquisitive. I must know my environment. I must know what is happening around me. Number 3 thing we learn from children, they've got this spirit of creativity. They are very creative. Let's learn from them. And the last thing we learn from children is that they're not scared of danger. And the tradition of our beloved Prophet makes it crystal clear. فَإِذَا خِفْتَ شَيْئًا فَكَافِي فَإِنَّ إِنْتِظَارَكَ لَا أَشَدُّ مِنْ أُقُوعِكَ فِي. The time you become anxious of doing something. Should I do it? No. Should I do? No. So that's the time to do it, because waiting for it is more dangerous than doing it. So that's one. Let me mention the 3 because of my time and then we're done. The second point to lead positive change is nizam, order. We have an umbrella body, Muslim Council of Britain. They're leading us. We need to respect that authority and order. Alaykum bi taqwa Allah wa nazmi amrikum, tradition says. Be conscious of Allah, but be organized. So God's consciousness goes hand in hand with order. Number 3, I need aqlun jam'i, collective intellect. What do I mean by collective intellect? I need like-minded who are committed for this change. Yes, we need to carry all along with us, but on the way, some may slip. Collective intellect is crucial. And last but certainly not the least, I need ruhu tafa'ul, proactiveness. We must be proactive. The Holy Prophet says, tafa'alu bil khayri tajiduha. Be proactive in doing khair, and you will find khair waiting for you. I wish all of us all best of luck. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallahu alfa khairan, Sheikh Noor. That was exceptionally inspirational. I will now bring your attention to the screens and I will explain why. As a faith, if you look at the amazing works of art in the forms of our mosques, forts, and shrines, and even calligraphy, we know how important art and beauty is in our great faith. I'd like to introduce you to Muhammad Ali, a street artist who uses his art to empower communities, celebrating community stories around, and speaks about things like faith and migration. And he's been doing this for nearly 2 decades. He's been creating murals globally, sharing his story and roots from Birmingham. We have a video from Muhammad Ali, who is in South Africa at the moment, but definitely wanted to share his message of support. I ask your attention to the screens.
Soul City Arts is an arts organization committed to the vision of connecting communities and transforming society. I've been in the arts for over 2 decades and have been building this organization throughout. We like to help tell the stories of everyday people in extraordinary form. We seek to build hope, pride, and confidence within communities, enabling them to celebrate themselves and their narratives. Throughout the years, we launched various art centers in Sparkbrook. We believe strongly in placing world-class art right in the heart of communities. In 2010, we launched The Hub, an intimate art center in an upstairs space overlooking an Aldi supermarket. After some years, we then moved to an underground basement space in the Bordesley Centre, minutes away from our first space. And now, Soul City Arts is based in a huge former industrial warehouse in Sparkbrook, Birmingham, which we have named Port Hope. We have transformed the space into a creative oasis in the middle of inner city Birmingham. Whilst we have delivered programs around the globe, we are proud to be embedded in the community and remain committed to delivering locally. We've delivered theatre shows, festivals, dining events, exhibitions and installations, but the real work begins now. We have recently become an Arts Council England national portfolio organisation, and we are now entering the next phase of our work. We continue to build our team, our offer and our reach.
Thank you. I know we've had an inspirational and an eye-opening session by Mr. Kane, who spoke about giving people a sporting chance. And what better way for us to continue with this conversation but to invite the great and wonderful Zaina Alwi, a Muslim football coach, player, enthusiast, and a third-year medical student. We have no idea how she does all of them at the same time. She is also proud to coach and play this amazing game while pursuing her dream of becoming a doctor and always striving to make a difference on and off the pitch. A big, big round of applause to Zaina Alwi, please.
That was a great introduction. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum and good morning. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Zaina, a third-year medical student at UCL. I also play football, I coach football, and some would say I live and breathe football. Growing up, my life was steeped in the love of football, thanks to my father. Tragically, he is a devoted West Ham fan for some reason, but he was also a very integral part of his Sunday League team, Walthamstow Red Star. As a club secretary, manager, and coach, he also lives and breathes football. Within the family, we often refer to football as his first wife. In fact, it almost felt like a family requirement that we, as his children, could at the very minimum pass a football, or else we'd be sleeping outside. Despite football being so integral at home, I never felt much inspiration to engage in sports outside the PE curriculum, and it was only until I was 16 that my footballing journey began. I found out about Frenford and MSA from a friend and was convinced to go watch one of their games. To arrive at the game and see female ballers who looked like me, who shared the same culture as me, was transformative. I was home. It inspired me to quickly get involved through training and playing for one of their five-a-side teams in Hackney. Playing for Frenford and MSA was a transformative experience. It was not just about the game. It was about being part of a community, about breaking stereotypes, and about making a statement. For the first time, I was surrounded by like-minded individuals who shared my passion for football and also my cultural background. I went from having little to no interest in football to dedicating at least 2 evenings of my week playing it. A year into playing, Frenford provided me the opportunity to pursue my coaching qualifications. This was part of an initiative to encourage more females to develop their football coaching prowess. This qualification gave me the confidence to have a go at training others in the game that I love. Since then, I've coached young players as young as 3 to 16 years old. They come with their own problems, their own demands, but I also did not anticipate that coaching others would help to improve my own game. And above all, we've also been able to establish and launch 3 girls' teams, predominantly composed of Muslim girls. Every Saturday morning at Hackney Marshes, you can see these young athletes, some donned in their hijabs, playing their hearts out. They are not just players, they are trailblazers, showing the world that passion and talent know no bounds. One particularly memorable moment that stands out is when I appeared in a Google advert about women in sports. It was just for half a second, but it led to a very delightful surprise in that my aunt, who lives here in Birmingham, was watching the advert, messaged me saying, "Wait, was that you?" And imagine it was just half a second in this advert. But it showed me how far I had personally come and the visibility we as Muslim women on the pitch were gaining. Alongside my commitments at Frenford and MSA, I am now also a part of my university medic football team at UCL. I'm also halfway through my 6-year degree, and I'm considering a career path in sports medicine to get the best of both worlds and to join both my passions. And I don't know how I do the both of them. Having just told you about my journey in football, from playing the game, coaching the game, and considering a career in the game, I thought I'd end by sharing my top 3 reflections. Number 1, that family support and encouragement at home are crucial. The time and commitment from parents to take you to your clubs, it is key in introducing young children into sports. I come from a very privileged background, alhamdulillah, where I'm fortunate enough to say my parents were always my biggest cheerleaders, supporting me every step of my journey. Number 2, the importance of representation. To never underestimate the impact that you may have on someone. They may look up to you, they may relate to you, and best of all, they may feel inspired by you. And finally, number 3, the importance of community support that clubs such as Frenford and MSA provide. Investing in communities and individuals such as myself is essential. I'm very grateful for the support that I've had in my journey. Thank you to my mentors, Yasmin, Irfan, Yashmin, and Neil. It is clear to me that our actions here today and in the wider community will inspire and pave the way for those who come after us. My journey has been about more than just playing football. It has been about breaking barriers. It's been about opening doors and empowering young Muslim women to chase their dreams unapologetically. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah for that. And I think you would be very pleased to know, Zaina, that our affiliates, the Muslimah Sports Association, they just marked their 10th year anniversary. So big round of applause to those amazing women. Now, before we go to the next session, I am going to ask you to do something. For those who know me personally, accuse me of doing this every single time. I'm hopeful not many people know me here, so this may be a good opportunity. I'm going to ask every single one of you to please stand up where you are. To do this exercise, just so that everybody is comfortable, I'm going to ask, if you are a man, only do it with the man in front of you. If you're a woman, only do it with the woman in front of you, just so that I don't get beaten up. So what we'll do is, I want you to stand in a circular line and face the person in front of you. Again, if you're a man and the man in front of you, please place both your hands in front of them, like you are standing in a school row or a queue, right? Fine. Can you please both your hands on the shoulder of the person in front of you? So you're standing in a queue, not facing each other. You're standing in a queue. You're standing in a queue. Yes? Yes? Have we got that? Yes? All right. Now, that we have spoken about sports, and we need a lot of things to do today. You've heard Zara say we need to get into action. I'm going to ask you to give the person in front of you a very, very emphatic massage. Okay? Is this happening? Is this happening? Okay. Now I want you to stop. And I want you to turn. I want you to turn. This is where you take revenge and you massage the person who massaged you. Should there be any injury, Muslim Council of Britain will not be responsible. Yes? Yes? All right, please give a big round of applause to each other. All right. Now, let's now have a quick seat at where we are. So we're now going to move to the next part of our program, which will be a panel discussion. And the first panel discussion is going to look at social mobility, the social and the economic issues of our community. So I'm going to invite our special guests, and of course Zara, who will be the moderator for today. I'm first going to invite Dr. Sohail Hanif. Can you please give a big round of applause, Dr. Sohail? He became the National Zakat Foundation's Chief Executive in November 2021. And prior to this, he was the Head of Research and Development. He brings to the role expertise in Islamic law, having studied extensively with traditional scholars, and also very important for us to know, holds a PhD from Oxford University. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sohail. We'll wait for... oh, sorry. We also are very happy to have with us the Chief People Officer at PwC UK, Ian Elliott. Please join us on our stage. Ian is passionate about cultivating a fair culture which embraces difference, and about leading our people as they continue to grow, develop, and flourish in their careers at PwC. Ladies and gentlemen, our first panel today, I will now hand it over to Zara.
I think it's worked, yeah. Well, assalamu alaikum everyone, and my really warm thanks to Ian and Dr. Sohail for coming on today. This panel was really after discussions with both of you, I guess, looking at the community. Now, you're going to find on your table some statistics, so you can have a little look. There's some graphs and charts from the Muslim Council Britain's research paper looking at the latest census results. Now, you don't need to look at all the charts because we're just going to have a nice conversation about it. But one of the things I wanted to highlight was one of our findings was that in the last 25 years, there's been little to no real meaningful change when it comes to social mobility for British Muslims. And we still now, 40% of our communities still reside in the poorest socioeconomic issues. But we're not going to talk about all those miserable statistics. I thought what we should talk about is what are we doing about it? Now, Ian, I'm going to come to you first, because PwC is doing lots of big things. We've got a Bradford office coming. But I know being a chief people officer, you might need to explain to people what on earth you do. We may need more of those. What is PwC doing to tackle the problem of social mobility, and how are you approaching it in a way that's changing and transforming lives as opposed to people feeling like they're in need?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Zara. And thank you for inviting me. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. I think the massage exercise you just did, I hope you enjoyed it. I think that was because I was 5 minutes late, so we would have started earlier. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Looked like you were, anyway. So, Chief People Officer, what do I do? So my job is to look after the 26,000 people that we have at PwC in the UK. But the most important part of that job is that we create an opportunity in our organisation for everyone to fulfil their potential. And for me, a huge part of that is that we bring people in from a wide variety of different backgrounds. And I think particularly create opportunities for those who, and you talked about some of the stats, and I view our role, and my role in particular, as creating opportunity for people who historically have not really had the chance to work in organisations like ours, and where they've got a chance to aspire to something that maybe they've never really thought about before. And unfortunately, big firms like ours and lots of other institutions have historically made that quite difficult. So when I think back to when I joined PwC, which was a very long time ago, 36 years ago now and counting, everybody looked like me. Everybody had been to a university that was probably a bit like mine. I went to Durham, and we all fitted in immediately, and we all knew each other, and we all, all the senior people I worked with, they all liked football. I liked football, so we got on, and I benefited from that. And that's sort of fine, but it's not fair. And what we're all about is creating fairness, as much fairness as we can in society, and reaching out to communities that historically will not know what PwC is. And it's not just about PwC, it's about big firms like us. So you mentioned Bradford. So I live near Bradford, in Yorkshire. And I see all the huge talent there is, the untapped talent, the untapped potential there is in a city like Bradford with, a huge proportion of young people. And what we want to do, we're opening a brand new office. I'd love you all to come and see it. It's opening in the summer. We're creating 600 new jobs in Bradford. But those jobs, they have to be for people from Bradford. It's not about people coming in to join us from outside. But to do that, we have to connect, and Zara, you and I have spent quite a bit of time in Bradford talking to schools, universities, the local authority there, other businesses. And this is about creating some momentum in a city like Bradford and giving people something different to aspire to. And we do a lot of outreach work, and we give young people the opportunity to come into some of our offices. And that is not about trying to get them to come to work for PwC. It's just about trying to get them to think about something different. And the look on people's faces when they see, this sounds patronizing, it's not meant to be, when they see a big office and they think, maybe there's a career for me in a place like this. And I think the more we can do to create opportunities for young people who otherwise are not going to get them, then the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've been in the big PwC office, and I was like, whoa, this is quite a lot of space and quite a lot of people. I'm going to tell you some funny stories about Ian, but not just yet. I will keep you waiting. So, Dr. Sahil, NZF, the National Zakat Foundation, more or less transformed the domestic zakat giving. Mm-hmm. And that was really inspired by the fact, because I remember those early conversations on we should give locally, because there is a lot of poverty locally, right? And I know, gosh, how many years now we're in. For you, I think it'd be really good for everybody here to hear how much dependency is there from the community in local zakat giving, but how is that zakat being used to transform lives? And of course, the idea with zakat is about dignity. So when people are in need, we don't want to rob them of their dignity, because the challenge of social mobility is you live in a cycle where you believe, that can't be me. Our family has never had anyone go to university. We've never done jobs like that. And changing the mindset can be very difficult. And someone who's taking zakat means that they're in a very low socioeconomic bracket. How have you grappled with the challenge of giving people who really need it so they still feel the dignity, but also helping to transform their lives? And maybe just a bit of insight as to what zakat's looking like today.
Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You talked about the beginning of NZF and changing the scene, so I find it quite relevant to note that NZF actually started because of stories of homeless Muslim women in Birmingham, actually. So the concept, the need, and the drive actually started from this city. The very first marketing campaign, or one of the very early ones, the tagline was, "What's the point of 3 million Muslims if Aisha has to sleep on the street?" And so that's just where the story started. It actually did start with women, actually, which is maybe a topic we can also talk a bit more about. And the story has been ongoing. In terms of what local zakat looks like in the UK, what I've noticed is that obviously there's a lot of undercover zakat that has always been going on, and it keeps going on, through hand-to-hand distributions, through auntie networks and the like. But there's a growing interest now in the UK, and I've been traveling a fair bit now, of people trying to really organize real local zakat. and organizing real local zakat is the priority of National Zakat Foundation. What do I mean by real local zakat? What I mean by that is that in our Islamic sacred law, the sunnah of zakat is that it's distributed in the city where people live. That speaks to us needing to build an entire infrastructure in every single Muslim community. Because you can't have real localized zakat without every city, every settlement, every community having people you can trust to know really who the Muslims are in the area, so they're not left behind, really what their needs are their needs being met, and can we distribute in a dignified way? And so NZF is coming to Birmingham very soon in this more localized, local leadership model, where we've been speaking with local mosques and local centers. People here in all of our communities are extremely active. We also shouldn't downplay the firefighting that happens. There's incredible firefighting that's happening in our communities. Food banks are having a demand that we've never seen before. Homeless shelters having a demand we've never seen before. Mosque volunteers are doing incredible work. And so just to say that we have to, this question of social mobility, especially for our community, is about building the plane while flying it. And it's not just about individual success stories, which are, every one is very important, but it's about systems change for our entire community. We're invested in that systems change at National Zakat Foundation, and it will take time. But just to say very brief, and again, you can develop it on, but we are developing models. We are coming to Birmingham to work with very active leading mosques so that they can have dignified, grassroots, face-to-face, community-based zakat distribution. Last thing about what you said before I pass it back was the advantage that NZF has built to date is that people can ask for help all over the country. You can apply online. We will review your paperwork and your details. We'll give you support wherever you are at the most remote part of the country. The advantage of that system is that people don't have to be embarrassed in front of people that they know. And I very frequently bump into people in very strange places. There was a train worker in St. Albans who had been helped through zakat, and he mentioned that, and he was working there at the station. There was a lady I met at a dinner in Bradford who, she didn't want to open up, but I think she went through domestic violence problems. We helped her resettle, and she came back to that dinner only to make a large payment to give back into the pot so that somebody else could be helped.
Thank you both so much. And I think you really, obviously, we would never really grasp to the depth that work really goes on, but also that it started with homelessness right here on our doorstep. So coming back to Ian, so you and I have been on many travels.
We have.
And I'd like to congratulate Ian on two things. One is I said, have you ever been to a mosque? And I said, there's one mosque you definitely have to go to. So off we went to Cambridge. Has anybody visited Cambridge? Yeah, I think it was pretty. What did you think, Ian?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
So we had him sold, near conversion, but didn't make it all the way. Then,
there's still time, Zara.
We're still time. Thank you, Ian. And then the second one was, did I ever think in my life that in Ramadan at 4 in the morning, I'd be on a video call to Ian Elliott from PwC because he decided he was going to be fasting that day, and I was his Ramadan buddy. So can we give a round of applause for Ian for fasting this year? And the reason I mentioned those two things is to do you justice, Ian, because we've been talking for a while, because one of the challenges and also one of the opportunities is in allyship. Right?
Yeah.
So we all need sometimes a way in. And often when you go into a workplace, I mean, my background was in law, big drinking culture. You know, it's that whole idea of, okay, I want to go and change my life, but I can't see myself there. And people like me don't get that job, don't get included. And I remember we joked around people, you know, this could be the first earner in the house on a proper salary.
And that's very often the case.
And the question that I really had to pose to you is, what is you as PwC doing, particularly for this audience, to make it more inclusive for Muslim communities? And I know that we've had some turbulence in the Middle East, and I think you've been doing some amazing work in challenging that. Talking about how do we keep our diverse Muslim employees with us, engaged, and progressing, particularly when it's challenging, and how do we make them feel part of a team when, yeah, we need to pray, Ian, we've got halal food, we've got a few things that we need, but as the Sheikh Nuru and others have said, you know, being inclusive is important, but we've got to do it in partnership. So
Yeah.
really good hearing from you on some of those. And congratulations.
Yeah.
around the
Thank
bunch.
you. So I think for me, when we talk about being inclusive, what that really means is having attracted some of the wonderful talent that we have in our firm, and increasingly from a variety of different backgrounds, because we've changed the criteria to join us. So you can join us straight from school now. You don't need a degree. You don't need a certain level of a degree. We have lots of apprenticeships, and it's starting to work in terms of attracting people in. But then when people join us, I want us to feel like they can. For me, being inclusive means that you can show up every day feeling comfortable in who you are, not feeling that you have to change who you are to be some PwC clone. Do I have to be like this guy here who I see? Is that the only way I'm going to progress? So, and the allyship, the reason the allyship is so important is that we need to sort of understand each other better. We see such a polarized world, don't we? We see it every day. We're seeing it play out at the moment, aren't we? In some of the campaigning we're seeing, shall I say. Helping each other to understand each other better and what makes us different and what makes us special is so important. So to give you an example of that, we have a number of very active people networks at our firm, one of which is our Muslim network. And you've been kind enough to come to some of the events that our Muslim network runs. Now, clues in the title, that network is open to all the Muslims in our firm. It's also open to everybody else. Because it's not just about, it's about creating a safe space in one way, but it's also about giving everyone else in our firm the opportunity to understand what being a Muslim is all about. And that's what the Ramadan Challenge is about. It's not just about people like me sort of fasting for a day, even though for me, that's the second time I've done it, and it's incredible. It puts you in such a better place to understand what everyone is sacrificing, but the pure joy that comes with it. Because I'd never really bothered to think about it, I just looked at it and I assumed it was something that was going to be so hard you wouldn't look forward to. And now, of course, I know it's a time of celebration and joy and getting together and bringing families together. And we want to help everybody else to understand all of that. And you mentioned the tensions in the Middle East, and the Muslim network was incredibly important for us in terms of been able to talk to everyone about what they were going through, everything that's been happening since then. We have a very active Jewish network too. We have lots of other faith networks, and they do lots of sort of great work together in sort of understanding each other, what their faiths are about, what's important to them, and that's what inclusion is really all about, because that then helps people to progress in our firm without changing who they are. And that's the most important thing. There's no point just recruiting lots of people who then spend a couple of years at an organization like ours and think, well, this place is just not for me. They told me it was inclusive, but it's not really. And it can't be about that. It's got to be about helping people progress and then having all their friends and others in their family wanting to aspire to maybe do something similar.
Well, they kept you for a long time, so
well, yeah, they can't get rid of me.
You must be quite good at it. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Sale, and then we're going to open it to the audience, so do think of your questions. I think the critical question of this panel is, what can we do about it? From your point of view, I think safe to say, given a cost of living crisis, NZF has been pretty busy. There's a lot of giving, and mashallah, we're a very generous community, so there's a lot of donating. But the cycle of giving and receiving, in some ways, what about progressing? And from your point of view, what can the community be doing to really utilize? Obviously, this hardship is really important and relief, but that social mobility, how do we transform it so we even maybe change a mindset as to how we approach the problem?
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Give you the hard one.
I'll start and then maybe Ian can wrap up. But in terms of, I talked earlier about systems change. So I just want to give a few remarks about systems and the system and the moment that we're occupying. I think it's not lost on all of us that our welfare system is struggling. That's just the bottom line for all communities. Muslim communities are disproportionately represented by that. It's unclear how we're going to come out of this into a stronger sort of social welfare net. National Zakat Foundation is committed to the idea that our Islamic sacred law has guidelines and teachings for us that are good for us. At the heart of our Islamic sacred law is the sense that what we have to, part of systems change, is we've kind of been brought up thinking, well, it's the government's job, it's their job. You know, I just got me, my life, my nuclear family, and I'm just trying so hard to pay off my mortgage. What else am I supposed to be responsible for? So there's this long-going system almost of outsourcing your almost social responsibility to structures that are kind of crumbling, whether we like to use that word or not. In the Islamic sacred law, at the part of systems change is a sense that, no, you are responsible for your community. And that's at the heart of our educational impetus. At National Zakat Foundation, but I think for all of us, and for the reason for our being here today, people have to feel literally, morally responsible for the welfare of their communities. Now, you can't solve the whole nation's problems, but what's came up a lot in what you've said earlier, your Bradford example, in the Edgbaston example, you can take responsibility for what's around you. Yeah. And that's at the heart of the, like I said, the localization of zakat that is in our sunnah. It's in the teachings of Islamic sacred law that every community is responsible for their own. No one should be left behind. We have seen escalating demand for help at National Zakat Foundation. So like this Ramadan, the average was 1 every 3 minutes. It's like it's mad to keep up with. But I'm convinced most of the people suffering are suffering actually in silence. They haven't come forward yet to apply. And I think we're failing them if we can't create systems that catch them. And you can't do that without localizing the work, without developing a local impetus of that we are responsible, without giving you the ability to take part. We talk about social mobility upwards, but what I'm seeing a lot of, which I'm going to also come to, but is that people want to help in the communities and they don't know how. They want to mobilize into community service. That's part of the systems puzzle. How can we create opportunities for people who are professionals, but they want to do more, and the community has needs? So that's part of the systems development. And so what we really have to develop is the fact that we can stand together, we can stand strong, there is need, but if we create communal responsibility, we will start journeys for people. So even if, for example, one zakat grant can't solve all of an individual's problem, but if we give it in a way that we've connected them with their local community solidarity network, they start a journey in community. So can you see, everybody? There's no way around all of us taking part. There's no way around all of us providing the opportunities. It's not somebody else's problem, it's our problem. All that's missing is how do we connect our networks? And so the biggest gap actually is a gap of awareness. People aren't aware of need. People aren't aware of what they can do. And if we could bridge the gap of awareness, create these localized networks of knowledge and opportunity and volunteering, I think the community is so generous, people so want to give. If we tied the awareness gaps, I think we'd create really a communal revolution, and wider society is looking for this, community-led solidarity and responsibility. So that's just in terms of what I meant by systems change. But I don't know if you'd like to add something to that as well.
Yeah, I think to build on that from a unemployment perspective, if you like, that's exactly how we're going to sort of solve what we have already looming very large in this country, which is related very starkly to social mobility, which is a skills problem. So, you know, our young people are not being given the opportunity to develop the skills that they're going to need to succeed going forward. And the way we're going to crack this is by businesses like ours, but not just big businesses, small ones as well, working with community, working with schools, working with universities, working with local authorities, working with other businesses, and ultimately in partnership with government too, to think about, you know, from a much earlier age, what are the skills that our young people are going to need to thrive and fulfill all the amazing potential that they've got. Because at the moment, I mean, the schools are doing everything they can with hardly any money, as we know. So we have to lean into that. You know, we're lucky enough to have the sort of scale, and it's our responsibility to lean into that and start to change a little bit of what of the skills that young people are being taught. And because all the things that are going to be so relevant to them are so relevant to the challenges that you're dealing with as well. You know, sort of leadership, resilience, social relevance, flexibility, agility, all of these things, as life gets ever more complicated, are what is going to help our young people to thrive. And that will help social mobility too. I'm an optimistic person like I think you are. That will help us on the social mobility journey too, because it will start to give people, young people more of an understanding and an opportunity, I think.
Okay, brilliant. Shall we take some questions? If we can get some hands up and name, yeah, we've got loads. We'll do 3 at a time. And she said there's some water, so like, brace yourself. But yeah, if you want to introduce your name, that would be great, and just keep it nice and concise. Thanks.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum and hi. My name's Mahira Jabeen, and I had a question for the panel. Considering the topic today is leading change, we're talking about inclusivity and we're talking about supporting each other. Actually, the research shows, if you look at Harvard Business Review, 95% of people think they're self-aware, only 10 to 15% actually are. And even Sheikh Nuru said that actually change has to start within yourself. So how do we address that common issue where self-awareness is seen as quite woolly? So even in corporate companies, people don't really want to look at that nitty-gritty, but it starts with the self. So just wondering if you had some insight or some examples that you share where we could collectively work together in leading change.
Okay, brilliant. And some more hands. We can take 2 more. Name, there's one at the front, over here. Oh, and there's one over there. Yeah, okay, we'll go for you. This is okay. So we're going to go to the back there, and then I'll come to you after.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name's Aslam Alavi. I'm the West Ham fan who was mentioned earlier. I've got a question that obviously we've got lots of right-wingers who are given platforms to kind of say, you know, this is too much is going towards one way. So how do we keep that balance to make sure, yes, whilst we provide platforms for minority communities, how do we make sure that everyone still feels a part of it rather than sort of creating those divisive channels for these people to then kind of bounce on? Because I'll tell you what, if certain characters who were given these platforms were sat here, they would say, oh, look at these Muslims, they kind of taking over everything. So it's keeping that balance and making sure that our communities stay integrated and, you know, everyone feels a part of the program.
Brilliant. So self-awareness and dealing with exclusion. It was the late. Oh, okay. Okay. So we'll go there and then we'll come to you after. Oh no. Okay. We're just going to take both of you. We'll just take both of you because off you go.
Thank you. I just had a question for Ian.
Your name as well.
Yes, my name is Sabah Shafi. My husband and I actually both work at PwC in Birmingham. Oh, wow. So it's really nice to see you here today. I just had a comment, really. What I've noticed new to the firm is actually that the inclusion and diversity processes in place, I've noticed are you know, very different to any companies that I've been at before. You know, there's lots of things in place to make people feel like they're a part of the team, the wider team. So I think that's a really good point that I've noticed coming new into the firm. I just wanted to ask you what PwC as a firm are doing to help social mobility upwards and to grow within the company so that people stay long term. I know you've been there for many years and a lot of the senior members of PwC that I've met have been. So how do you plan to keep people in the company long term and help them grow to the very top from these kind of communities? Thank you.
Okay, great. We'll just stop there because I think that's a lot. Or okay, just ask the question. Just ask it. Yeah, I'm gonna write it down.
Assalamu alaikum.
I'm going to say you're keeping count.
My apologies if I offend by this question, particularly to Dr. Sohail. Mashallah, there's people like Dr. Hadi and others that represent the wonderful philanthropic work that happens from the UK. And it's been something that I've been kind of asking for many years. You know, we hear the Imam saying on Friday, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan, commanding justice and doing good and giving to those that are kind of nearly connected to us, usually taken to mean relatives. But how can we change the mindset without alienating our traditional donors to accept the charity begins at home? And what can we do as a philanthropic organization, whether it's the large ones like Ummah Welfare, Islamic Relief and others, and NZF, as well as the smaller outfits that are involved in collecting the donations and distributing further afield? Are we creating a culture of dependency, or are we really enabling people locally to be self-sustainable, particularly when the welfare state, like you've said, is crumbling?
Okay, great. No, those are really good questions, actually. Okay, so we'll split it up. I think, Ian, it'd be good to start with you. So there was a question around that kind of self-awareness, but also on social mobility upwards. And then if there's, obviously there was a point made around exclusionary voices and tackling that. And then obviously there was around how we change zakat and traditional doors. So do you want to pick on some of those key points?
So they're great questions, thank you. So self-awareness, well, I talked about skills earlier, and I think you're so right in the thrust of your question is that most of us are not as self-aware as we ought to be, and as we think we are, because that's kind of self-fulfilling, isn't it? So I think a lot of this is about giving people access to sponsorship. So this comes to it's great to see you here. It comes to a bit of your question about how we help people sort of progress upwards through the firm once they've joined us from a lower socioeconomic background. So sponsorship and having the opportunity to speak to people more experienced than you who have been through the sort of ups and downs of building a career is so important.
And sponsorship is not the traditional sponsorship.
No, sorry, not. So I mean
corporate language.
Yeah, so corporate, you might call it a bit more like coaching, mentorship. So we really encourage all of our senior people at PwC to spend time with people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. For some of our fantastic female talent, who don't have the same. The reason there are lots of senior people at PwC who look a bit like me is that we're kind of full of confidence, right? And we're always telling people. Actually, I'm not like this, but as you know, but there are lots of people who are always ready to say, "Oh, I'm ready to be promoted." I'm ready, constantly ready. Whereas people from different backgrounds, they don't feel that. They constantly feel like they're having to struggle to keep up, and I hate it that people are feeling like that. So what we try to do is give them access to people who've been through all sorts of different experiences and have had ups and downs, and who have developed that self-awareness through trying lots of different things, and they don't always work, right? There's nothing wrong with making mistakes as long as you learn from them. So that sort of sponsorship, coaching, mentorship is so important to building self-awareness, and we're on a journey around that at PwC, and we're sort of encouraging others to do the same. And that's part of the answer to your question about how we're going to help people to progress. We did a piece of work earlier this year with 25 of our new joiners from lower socioeconomic backgrounds who started with us in September. And we got them to keep a diary for the first 6 to 8 weeks that they were with us, just so we could capture the richness of their experiences and how they were feeling. And the sort of results of that show you that you make so many assumptions about how people are going to behave and how they're going to be treated. So some of the things that came out of it just make you want to despair. But had a kid who just joined us here in Birmingham, actually, and first person in his family ever to work in an organisation like this, like ours, sorry. And he said all the sort of partners and the senior people that he worked with, all they wanted to talk about was their cars and their ski holidays. And he's like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. I've never been skiing. I don't. And it sounds, it's sort of, on one level it might sound funny, but it's not, because it goes to the exclusion that people experience all the time. It immediately makes them feel, oh, well, this place isn't for me because I don't even know what you're talking about, so how can I build networks? We always say to people, it's so important that you come to events like this, get to know people, build your networks. That's how you'll start to succeed. But how can I do that if I can't even get into the conversation? So there's a lot about helping people to understand each other better, and that goes to the exclusion question as well, I think.
Really, really powerful, and you wouldn't even know, but you're so right. And Dr. Sahil, I guess the fundamental question for you was, how do you keep the traditional base and not people feel excluded and keep, I guess that is your job, isn't it, day to day now, dealing with that question.
No, it is. And also the question on exclusion as well. I wanted to talk a little bit to that one as well. If I can actually start with that one. The idea you talked about right wing and too much money going to one side and not to the other side is we need to make sure that we really represent very clearly and unequivocally that one community thriving is good for all of community. I mean, there's no way around it. So that idea of, you know, people feeling uncomfortable with the success stories of a minority, we have to tackle that by showing, no, their success is everybody's success. We had a report we released just before Ramadan at National Zakat Foundation, where we showed that £1 we spend to keep someone in housing has an economic value of £73. And the reason for that is, it is so much more expensive to rehouse somebody homeless than just to keep them in housing. And so if you can say then, we are saving the public expenditure millions upon millions upon millions of pounds, or for example, last year we redistributed just within London about £4 million. If you take that out, it's not you replace it with 4 million, you replace it with multiple times more because of the cost of that welfare structure for, you know, not being so easy to replace. So we have to be really clear in showing really through data and not just through stories, the fact that any community thriving will always be good for all of community. And if Muslim communities are in the most deprived areas, if we can have cash moving in those areas, if we can have jobs for people in those areas, we are uplifting and supporting entire local authorities. And you're all aware of the phenomenon of local authorities on the verge of bankruptcy across the country. So just to be really explicit about that, that is not, you know, it is everyone's success to see the poorer and the marginalized succeeding. And I'm sure that you'll agree with that with all of what you've been doing. And in terms of the charity conversation, all I'd like to say is that our sacred law has a spectrum of opinions which gives us room. And our scholars always said the disagreement of scholars is a mercy for our community. So on the question of localizing zakat, all scholars agree that it's the essential nature of the institution. But there's a lot of debate around what if there's greater need overseas, what if your family are overseas, and so on. And that gives us room to maneuver as a community, because we are wealthy, and there are a lot of needs overseas as well. And so what I'd say is what we have to talk is the language not of either or, but the language of both and every. Our sacred law of our Prophet, ﷺ, it never spoke about focusing on one tie to the exclusion of others, but it was this idea of seeing to all of your ties. Tie of family, tie of neighborliness, tie of ummah, tie. Every tie, someone you've met with. Again, our Prophet ﷺ, how much he honored the friends of his deceased wife, because that was a tie. Or the tie of the wet nursing family is a tie. So we just need to have a narrative of, we have ties, no tie should be blocked out to the exclusion of others. Our resources are limited and we will have to do our best. Speaking about Dr. Hani and Islamic Relief, because he was also named, is that Islamic Relief have been actually very much at the forefront of the international relief agencies who are putting aside zakat for local distribution. And they've been distributing zakat through NZF in the UK for a number of years. And we've been also recently partnering with them specifically for caring for Gazan refugees. Where we've worked together for really ongoing support for the refugees who are coming out of Gaza. NZF, we're having conversations with a number of international relief agencies to say, let's come together. We have some need here. We are specializing for UK distribution. Why don't you have some of your zakat earmarked for local distribution? And so if I can say that here as well, if anybody is here, part of an international relief agency, please do come and talk. It's not about either or. It's not about competition. It's how do we see to all of our ties, and the tie of neighborliness is an important tie. Similarly, while I'm here as well, I've talked about investing in local leadership and local infrastructure. If there are people here representing local mosques, local community groups, I'd be very keen to see how we can work and support you. There's no competition in this conversation at all. We're just trying to do our part to see to our ties. And the tie of faith and tie of zakat is what we are specializing in. And one last thing, you've talked about the very small projects. I know you're part of a local marriage project. You've been leading on also foster care projects. So it's just that we need, maybe this is where again MCB can help almost coordinate our local needs. Here, yeah. Well, exactly. So almost you are the exact convener to bring these various conversations together.
It's what inspired the conference, because I realized so much disparate good work going on, but nobody talking. Yeah. So we have time for maybe like 1.5 questions. So let's see, we've got 2 quickies and that's it. And from maybe this Okay, you, this gentleman, and then over at the back. That's it. So can we get a trans? Yeah, over here. Name over here at the front, and then the lady at the back. Yeah, we're gonna. Over here, just over here. Yeah. It's gonna translate. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sami. I'm from an organisation called Deaf World, and I've got an interesting question for both of you. So, PwC and NZF, how do you guys make your organisations accessible for the deaf community, like employment or information and social mobility within your organisations? Also, with the Zakat work that you're talking about, how do you really reach out to the deaf community? Yeah, that's my question for you guys.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. Thank you. And the lady at the back, you're making Naim run all the way to you. So I don't know if we should applaud him or give him a drum roll. It's going to take a bit of time. While we're... yeah, give him a clap, guys. He's got so much... Yeah, there we go. It's about good calorie count there. Yes, sister, please tell us your name and your question. Keep it very
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shaista Mukaddam. I'm from Birmingham City University, and I launched the first ever BSc in Accounting and Islamic Finance. I can see Dr. Suhail going like this, and I was going to give a comment that these are too tall for us to see you from here.
It's the flower. I was trying to touch the flower.
Do you want me to make him stand?
Yeah.
I'll make him stand. Don't worry.
So maybe for the next time we'll, I will give feedback. But thank you for such a lovely event. What I was saying is children now learn differently. And we have the 6 weeks of the summer. We have to start early and talk to the youngsters. Because my own son, coming from a very, middle-income family, he went to a school. He came back and he said, the Midland Sailing Club is only for the white people. It's not for me. So we have to start this kind of changing the mindset and making them inclusive right from school. Plus, we have the 6 weeks window in the summer. So can we all collaborate in some way and use that period to work with the youngsters to start this conversation? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sister. And we'll take that on board with the flowers. So can we go to this very important question, I guess, and both reflections, and we'll wrap up there. But yeah, so what are we doing to support, I guess, deaf, disabled, and communities that need a little bit more help?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have something called the Staff Diversity Council at PwC, and I know other large firms like ours will maybe have something similar. And we have representatives from the deaf community on that council. So we talk to them and we hear from them all the time about what we can do better and what we can do differently in our recruitment processes, for example. So we've changed some of those. If you're in an event like this at PwC, there'd be captions. So there'd be AI captions, which normally works. I mean, not always, but normally. So people from the deaf community will be able to sort of at least get close to sort of what's going on and what the discussion is. The same that's been done here with the signing. So, and we've done the same with some of our neurodiverse colleagues. For example, we've got some amazing training called Great Minds Don't Think Alike, which is based on, it's in animation. You may have seen it, people from PwC here. And it just gives you an insight into what it's like to be neurodiverse and the sorts of thoughts that you go through, experiences you go through, even getting to work on your commute and so on, and then which bit of the office is going to work best for you. You can't just go and sit sometimes around lots of noise and so on. So we do the same with the deaf community. So this is all about, as I said earlier, about helping people to show up as you are and not feeling like you have to conform to something that you don't want to.
Brilliant. And Dr. Suhail, on that one?
Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. It's got me thinking, actually. So first of all...
And even if you haven't, maybe we could implement some things.
Yeah, no, exactly. So in terms of our basic offering, which I said, which most of our money is distributed and accessed actually through online applications, you never actually have to actually speak or listen or communicate with someone in that sense. As long as you can read, you can upload documentation. If we have questions, we will send you questions. We'll make sure the support reaches you wherever you are. If it's a bank transfer, you can get it through your bank or through the post office. If it's a housing support, we will pay the relevant party on your behalf. If it's a training course, we'll pay for the training course for you. And so actually, for the deaf community, actually it's quite accessible, actually. But you've got me thinking about other forms of disability. where, for example, if you were blind, obviously you would need someone to help you to work through that process. You got me thinking about, I've spoken a lot today about empowering grassroots and local projects as the future of working with local leadership. We do check all of our partners for, we look for their governance, we check their safeguarding, we look for disability access. But I think so far the focus would have been on physical disability access. And so I think definitely it's got me thinking, and I'll definitely see how we can work for empowering this further going forward. But thank you very much. I really appreciate the question very much.
No, thank you so much. So we have to wrap it up there. Hopefully our guests will be lurking around for your questions. I think someone should definitely ask PwC about AI and the amount of investment going into that, because that's going to change everything, really. And there is a lot of investment going into that. But can we give a massive round of applause to our fantastic guests? On behalf of the Muslim Council of Britain, personally, my thank you, Ian. You've come all the way. I know you just came literally back from holiday on a Sunday as well to be here with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for the commitment PwC has to British Muslim communities and empowerment. Dr. Sahel, you've got a lot of work to do, and we are partners in that work. And thank you for sharing and giving us the insight to the reality, which is pretty difficult, but obviously the opportunity to change it. Yep. And that's all from us on this panel, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for your time, and more importantly for the contributions from our audience that have actually started the conversations to go forward and for a lot of things now to take shape. Our next guest on stage is Dr. Riaz Timol, who will be now speaking about the report on British imams. He works as a research fellow at the Cardiff University's Centre for the Study of Islam in the UK. Dr. Riaz teaches the MA module History and Development of Muslim Communities in Britain and is the principal investigator of a major 4-year project examining the lived experiences of British imams and the co-editor of a special issue of the international journal Religions Exploring Leadership, Authority and Representation in British Muslim Communities. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Dr. Riaz.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for the invite and the opportunity to share some research findings. I remember I think it was in 2019, at the King Power Stadium in Leicester, the Muslim Council of Britain organized a wonderful event. And interestingly, that was at the inception of this project. So I had kind of lots of ideas about what I wanted to do, and I shared some of them. And so it's really nice that at the other end of the project, I'm able to actually stand here in Birmingham at Edgbaston this time and hopefully share some of the research findings. Zara was quite strict when we spoke beforehand, in the sense that she said, you've only got 10 minutes, and as an academic, you have to learn to, we actually have a hadith principle, Jawami'ul Kalim, to be concise in speech. So I'm going to try my best to wrap it up within 10 minutes. What I'm going to do is give you a brief overview of what we did in terms of the research, how we generated data, and then I've slimmed it down into 3 essential findings, which I hope will stay with you. And in terms of the panel discussion afterwards, they can hopefully become the springboard of a constructive, evidence-based discussion about where we go from here. Because one of the things that the project team at Cardiff University is very keen to do is that the findings of this research project do not remain restricted in the ivory towers of academia, but they actually have a grassroots impact in Muslim communities themselves. So the name of the project is Understanding British Imams. It's the largest study of British imams that have that's ever taken place. I think it's important to specify what we mean when we refer to an imam. So our definition of an imam is somebody who's been appointed to lead prayers in a British masjid. Therefore, we distinguish it from the broader category of ulama because religious authority is multiply construed in Islam. I hope you can see the slides. I think they're slightly fuzzy, but yep, you can make out the text and things. In terms of how we collected data, there's three things that we did. First of all, we did a national imam survey. So for the first time, we reached out to as many mosques in the UK as possible, and we compiled basic biographical data regarding the person that's been appointed to lead prayers. This allows us to answer basic questions such as how many imams in the UK are British born, what languages are ordinarily spoke from the pulpit, does the imam have a second job, and if so, what is the second job? So it enables us to sketch a national profile of the British imamate. If you think of it as a funnel is wide at the top and it's narrow at the bottom. So with the survey, the imam survey was covering as many mosques as possible, but just asking very basic questions. At the bottom of the funnel, where it's quite narrow, we were moving into the realm of meaning and feeling. So we were conducting 40 in-depth interviews with British imams in which we explored their motivations for becoming an imam, the actual experiences, the joys and challenges of the roles, and if they could do things differently, what would they like to do differently? So lots of questions in terms of 40 interviews. The third thing that we did is that we spoke to ordinary Muslims, male and female, from around the country in terms of their experiences of interacting with imams. And this was our community survey, and we were very pleased to generate 587 responses. And so we were able to complement the view from the pulpit, the view of imams themselves, with the view of congregants. And so hopefully that generated a holistic data set. All of the data has been collected and analysed, and we're in the final stages of publishing the findings as an academic monograph, which is basically a book. And so I'll be sharing some of the key findings today. Like I said, I've subsumed this into three key findings. The first key finding is that leading daily prayers is only a fraction of what imams do. The demands of the role are diverse and unpredictable. Many imams are overworked and underpaid. Contracts, when they do exist, are usually inadequate and fail to capture the imam's the varied workload. Dealing with marital conflicts is a significant demand of the role. So there's a lot there, but the key thing is that the working conditions, the role itself is diverse and unpredictable, but very often the contract of the imam and the institutional support that they receive is inadequate in order for them to be effective in their role. And what I'm going to do is try and share some actual excerpts from the interviews themselves. It's a bit difficult for me to see the text from where I'm stood, so I would have read that out for you, but I mean, that's a quote which illustrates the diversity of the role and the varied demands, lots of different things. I'm hoping you can see and read it. I'll just give you a moment to get through that. So that's Imam Sufyan. All of the names have been anonymized. And so moving on, this diagram here is effectively something that we've developed in order to map the conceptual diversity within what we could term the British imamate sector. So on the one hand, on this side, closer to me, you've got the role of the imam as a ritual prayer leader. Basically, all you need for that role is a proficient level of tajweed, someone who can recite the Quran correctly, punctuality, somebody who turns up on time for the prayers, and a basic level of moral credibility. And if you look at the bottom right-hand side, community infrastructures. So one of the things that we found is that the community infrastructures that we have are geared towards producing imams who tend towards the ritual prayer leader side of that spectrum. If you move along the spectrum, then we go towards an inspirational faith leader. And an inspirational faith leader is someone who goes so much above and beyond just leading the prayers. So they inspire the congregation, they educate the congregation, they provide pastoral and counseling care, they intervene in marital disputes, they cultivate a congregation which is wider than the local, sometimes even wider than the local Muslim community, so they're active in interfaith or civic engagement work. And if you look at the bottom right of that slide, we've got community expectations. And what we found from the community survey is that many people in the British Muslim community want leaders who are operating closer to the inspirational faith leader side of the spectrum. However, the community infrastructures that we have are geared towards producing leaders that are closer to the ritual prayer leader. So I think one of the key takeaway findings for today is how can we invest in our community infrastructures to produce leaders and imams that can move along the spectrum and operate closer to the inspirational faith leader. And there's a second key finding is that many imams feel that their theological training did not prepare them adequately for the demands of the role. Seminaries are heavily textually focused, whereas the demands of the role are essentially people-centric. Most imams would welcome the opportunity for self-development, CPD. However, mosque management committees are usually unwilling to invest in upskilling imams by producing the flexibility or funding for them to attend CPD courses. And this was a cause of significant frustration among the imams that we interviewed. Here's another couple of quotes. So this is Imam Ali, who said, "We never got the training on when someone comes to you with a mental health problem, what questions can you ask, can you not ask, what is the order that you should ask them in, etc." Oh, thank you. I can see the quotes now. What is the order you should ask them in? At what point should you talk to them about referrals to professional services? Divorce cases come in, or worse, the kinds of violence, the cases that come in. So what became evident is that imams are intervening in highly sensitive and emotionally charged family, domestic, community situations, but they've not had the professional training to do that. And they often do it because of their commitment to what we termed the notion of khidmah, or selfless service. They see themselves as servants of the community. Many of them are overworked and underpaid, but nevertheless, they feel that they have a calling, a vocation from Allah, from God, to serve the community, and they do it to the best of their abilities. However, as a community, we should think about how we can upskill imams. If you upskill a single imam in a community, potentially that has an exponential impact on the whole congregation. So that was the second finding, is that there's a strong appetite for CPD. And this is another quote from Imam Idris, who said, "Why don't the mosques invest in the imams?" I'm not saying in every mosque, but if the masjid has enough money, I've wanted this vision where they invest in us. There's a course which is, for example, 2 years. I'm 33 years old. When I'm 35, then they'll have an imam who's a community leader. They'll have an imam who's a counselor that can deal with these issues. So the appetite for CPD was palpable and strong from among imams, but they felt that there was a glass ceiling, there was obstacles predominantly from the mosque management or the community expectations, where people expected them just to be a ritual prayer leader and weren't willing to invest in developing the imam with the people skills. And lastly, the third key finding is with reference to the experiences and frustrations of British Muslim women. And these came through very strongly in the community survey. And again, this is just a snapshot. There's a lot more I could say about this. But from the community survey, what we found is that 74% of female respondents did not feel comfortable approaching their imam for moral support or religious guidance. However, 95% of them would approach a female alima if their mosque employed one, though only 17% of mosques do. And here are a couple of quotes from the survey. So these are from Muslim women. One said, "I couldn't just approach the imam whilst out and about because it would be seen as incorrect. Also, I wouldn't be able to phone him as my husband wouldn't like it. And besides, I don't have a contact number for him." And another Muslim woman said, "I believe that there should be a female equivalent of the imam, a resident alima or a scholar who could be the first point of call for the women." And so that was something which came across strongly from our community survey. And it's an example of a type of concrete recommendation that the project could make, in that we have a surplus of alimas in the community. Many Muslim women don't feel comfortable approaching their imam, so why don't we find a professional role for alimas to serve the needs of Muslim women in the community? And so, again, that's a snapshot of 3 key findings. Thank you so much for listening. Just to summarize, number 1, the working conditions generally tend to be inadequate. Number 2, there's a very strong appetite for CPT among British imams. And number 3, many British women feel underserved by the current level of service provision within British mosques. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Riaz. Now we move on to the second panel, and we will invite on stage the panel on building communities for the future. I'm going to invite Rahma Suleiman, who will be the moderator for today. The first, I'd like to invite Kamran Hussain. And I'm inviting Yasmin Sorti, please. Professor Adila Shafi.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam.
Oh, that was a bit low. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, thank you very much. That was a lot better. Assalamu alaikum, as I've just been introduced, my name is Rahma Suleiman. I am going to be chairing this workshop today with our esteemed guests. By day, I am a secondary school teacher, and by night, I am the co-founder of the first Black and Black Muslim hair care event in the world. We can say that now, alhamdulillah. We did our running for the second year this year. I am honored to be here amongst influential Muslims today. Hands up if this is your first time here. MashaAllah, look around the room. Today is a great chance to make meaningful connections with all the people here. I've just had the honor to be able to speak to just a few people, and some of the things they've done is absolutely fantastic, so definitely make the most use of it. Collective intellect and proactiveness was highlighted by the Honorable Sheikh Nouri Muhammad today, and I think this session is a representation of that. The aim of the session will be to explore key areas for growth in community and leadership, reflecting on the findings of the survey that you've just heard from, and which are also on your tables, with our incredible and diverse panel of experts to help us gain solutions on how we can move forward and build better institutions. I want to start by introducing each of our esteemed guests. Our first guest is a graduate in management, a former chartered accountant, and holds an MBA. His education has also focused on Islamic studies and various institutions in the UK and overseas. He's held various senior management roles in industry, working for almost 25 years for the likes of the Financial Times, Alstom, Qatar Petroleum, and National Grid. His journey in community leadership began early in his career when he assumed various volunteer roles within local mosques and community organisations. In January of this year, he moved to Manchester to become the CEO of the British Muslim Heritage Centre, where they are embarking on a major construction and development project. He currently serves as a member of and advisor of various boards, including AI Mutada, IERA, and others. Please help me welcome Kamran Hussain. Thank you for joining us. Our next guest is Yasmin Surti. Yasmin was the first woman to be elected to the executive committee of the Federation of Muslim Organizations. She is an executive committee member of MCB and is involved in many local organizations in varying capacities. She is also involved in many interfaith and cross-community initiatives and is committed to working for all members of the community to ensure Leicester and its people maintain harmony and prosperity in the face of huge national and international challenges. Yasmin has almost 40 years of local, regional, and national experience of working in statutory, voluntary, and independent sectors to bring about change and improve the lives and experience of people with a range of disabilities and their families, and is a champion for equality and diversity. Please help me welcome Sister Yasmin Turki. And next up we have Professor Adila Sharif, MBE. Adila's research is focused on how to re-engage incarcerated children and young people with education and learning. Most of this work has been on international projects with the aim of raising the profile and attention of this researched area on an international stage. Adila's work reflects passion and skill for collaborating across boundaries to generate the thinking for new solutions to old problems. Adila has been the principal investigator on large Erasmus Plus projects, such as re-engaging young offenders and education and learning, as well as an established publishing profile. Adila has had a special issue in the international journal Children's Education in Secure Custodial Settings, towards a global understanding of effective policy and practice. She's currently lead editor on a new international handbook by Paul Grave entitled The Education of Incarcerated Children and Young People. Adila is also an active community worker, standing for MP in 2010. She is chair of the Avon and Somerset Police Scrutiny Panel, founder of the Bristol Muslim Strategic Leadership Group, and Commissioner for Race Equality in Bristol. Adila was recognized for her contributions in research and services to social justice with an MBE in the Queen's 2020 New Year's Honour List. Please help me welcome Professor Adila. And last but not least, we have Dr. Riaz Tamal, who has already been graciously introduced by our host and who has helped to lead the survey that you all just heard about. Let's welcome him once again, and thank you so much for that very informative survey breakdown. Right, so I'd like to start by asking each of our panelists a question, and if other panelists want to jump in and sort of add a little bit more to it, that would be also brilliant. So I'd like to start with Kamran Hussein. The first question I would like to pose to you is, how much progress have we made in institution building, and what is the next critical step for building of the future?
Zakalaya. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. So I'm suffering from a cough today, so if I start having a coughing fit, please excuse me. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My bad. Great question. I think you probably need to split it into three elements. Whenever I talk to my teams, I say you need to split your communications into three elements. Why is this important? What's happening? How do we progress? So in terms of why is this important, why is institution building important? I think that right now we're facing some real existential questions as a Muslim community. I think we're on the precipice, a cliff edge of the perceptions of Muslims in the UK. And I think we're sleepwalking through a lot of the risks and the problems and the stats that keep being raised. We see the right-wing rhetoric, in fact it's the left-wing rhetoric now as well, against Muslims, and some of the things that come in on the mouths of the politicians. And Allah warns us that what is manifesting on their mouths, what is in their hearts is much worse. We don't know the real extent of it. Islamophobia is on the rise. We see inequalities in health, education, employment, right? We're one of the largest groups disproportionately in prisons. So right now, if we don't build institutions, if we don't start working towards, how we influence and how we do things on a collective level, things are only going to get worse, right? So we can't necessarily do it on an individual level. We need to do it on an institutional level. We need to build institutions, right? Otherwise, we're going to see this cliff edge and this demise of the Muslim community here. And people are already asking themselves the question, is the UK a place that I want to be as a Muslim? People are talking about hijrah. They've been talking about it for many years. But people are seriously asking themselves the questions. My own son-in-law and daughter are migrating to Turkey. And there's other people doing the same thing. I don't think that's the answer. We can't do that. Yeah, certainly not majority, right? We need to start thinking of ourselves as part of the fabric of this society, because we can provide a lot of the solutions and answers to the problems and devices that they have here. And the way that we do that is we've got to build institutions. Now, our forefathers, our grandparents and our parents who came here, they understood the importance of building institutions. They were going door to door, collecting money for mosques, for madrasas, for other Islamic schools and things like that. They understood the importance of building institutions. And thankfully, tabarakallah, may Allah reward them for the efforts that they put in, because they've built the foundation for us now. So that leads to the next part in terms of, are we doing enough? What are we doing? And despite that sort of, scary picture, and I don't want to be overly dramatic about it, but despite that picture I've just painted, I actually think that the future is quite bright for the Muslim community here. And why do I say that? Because I think we're at an evolutionary place right now. I think that institutions are really trying to punch a lot harder. And there's a number of reasons for that we're going through this evolution. One is that there's a lot more pressure from ourselves and the community for institutions to do more. I have about 10 mosques knocking on my door over Ramadan asking for money. So I'm going to give to the one who I think is really doing some serious work, right? So we're being a bit more selective about who we're giving our donations and money to. So we're expecting a lot more from institutions. We're also seeing some real shining stars coming out of communities in terms of institutions. I won't name them, but there's some really good shining stars coming through, which are raising the bar in terms of what is expected from these institutions. And I also think there's a level of competition, not from an egotistical perspective, but a level of competition amongst leaders and communities, and that's fine, because as Sheikh Nuru said, we should compete in righteousness and piety, the same way that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar radiallahu anhum competed. So there's nothing wrong with that. So we're going to see a lot more happening from these institutions in terms of how they evolve. And things like best practice sharing and mentoring is happening as well. So people are learning from each other. So there's a lot more that's going to happen in terms of institutions and their output. The other thing is, I think that Gaza has been a real flashpoint for us. I think it's made us realize how Muslims are perceived here in this country. And I think we didn't realize how much our voice was disregarded in all the various arenas, political and otherwise. And that's a real wake-up call for us. Like I said, I think we've been sleepwalking through all these statistics and this Islamophobia that's out in the public, and we've now really realized what our position is here in the UK. And so now what you see is discussions being held about institution building, like today. You've got new organizations being established, like the Muslim Vote. I'm working with a business who wants to set up a new soft drinks company to compete against some of the mainstream companies, and donate profits to Gaza. And we see new political leaders emerging, independent candidates. So, Gaza has been a real flashpoint, but it's accelerated our evolution as a community. And then the last question is, how do we build for the future? Well, I think there's macro level building and there's micro level building. I think macro level, we need more than anything, as Sheikh Nuru said, we need unity. We have to strengthen our numbers. We need to show a united front. Often we're too critical of each other. We need to have unity. Sometimes we're too sectarian. We need everybody together. The second thing is we need to build leaders. Often we put leaders in places and positions on best intentions. What we need now is people who are skilled and experienced. And it's difficult finding people who are skilled and experienced who also have the Islamic side to them as well. That's the conundrum. But we need to start looking at how we build leaders. We also need to start supporting these institutions as a community. We need to start supporting them financially. We need to start supporting them with our expertise. But also we need to start giving public solidarity to them. So when some of them are being thrown under the bus, like the MCB and others, how many of us actually stood up and said, no, actually, we stand with the MCB, or we stand with MEND, or we stand with these organizations, or the individuals who are being blacklisted. So we need to start supporting these institutions and showing public solidarity. Now, this is an exhaustive list. There's a lot more stuff. I was talking to my daughter on the way in, and she started saying, what about this and what about that? So these are just my opinions, okay? But on a micro level, we need to focus on a whole host of other things. Governance. You know, I've been bitten too many times in the past on safeguarding, on poor policies and procedures, on finance issues. We need to build high-performing cultures. We need to train and develop the people in these institutions. We need to have big, strong visions. So, yeah, so I think the future's bright. I think, we've learned from our mistakes, and I think we can do a lot more, inshallah.
Thank you so much. I know I said I was going to allow panel members to join in, but just because of time, we're going to get everyone to answer a question, and then, inshallah, we'll leave the floor up open a little bit more. But what I got from what you just said, some of the core things to kind of break it down: visibility, access, representation, and obviously grassroots work. Thank you so much, Kamran Hussain. Right, the next question I'm going to throw to Yasmin Surti. How much has changed for women and inclusion of diverse groups? How can we do it better using what you know to work?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So when we talk about women, I think we always talk about the time of our Prophet ﷺ, when the masjid was the hub of the community, and we always hear about that, and we reflect on what's around us today. And it's safe to say, without being critical, that in many cities we don't have masjids that operate in the same way. But we also have to celebrate that there are some. Cambridge Masjid was mentioned. I'm from Leicester. We have a couple there who are running food banks, activities for women in leadership roles. An Open My Mosque survey a while ago suggested that 2/3 of women had a negative experience when visiting a masjid, and yet a survey carried out said that 96% of people surveyed felt that they needed to be more accessible to women, but also women needed to be in leadership roles. But for that, you need an inclusive society. You need people to support that. You need brothers, sisters to support that. Otherwise, we're on a hiding to nowhere. We need to celebrate what's happening in those masjids where it is working well. And the reality is, because that access is not there in many cases, many women and young people are now very successfully dealing with some of the societal issues that we have in our communities. And we know there are many societal issues, refugees, domestic violence, a lot of stuff has been mentioned today. They're forging their own paths. And, if it's not possible to limitations are there, and we have to accept that. We're not here to criticize. But if it's not possible to have that in that inclusive environment in a masjid, then we need to be supporting these organizations and recognizing the work that they're doing, and the work that they're doing that actually is maintaining the infrastructure of our communities. We have young people being lost, sadly. County lines was mentioned before. Lots of peer pressure. And so we need to be supporting these organizations, bringing them in, and encouraging others to support them. Funding is always an issue, both for masjids and for institutions. And again, there's a lot of wealth in our community, and we need to be thinking about how we channel that to better provide for these organizations that are doing the sterling work that we need, celebrate and champion them. And I think, the other point I wanted to make is the Muslim community is not homogenous. We're a diverse community in ourselves, and if you just look across this room, you know, you see many different faces. So again, how are we welcoming and celebrating that diversity? Because within that is the talent and the future of our communities and our generations. You know, so, you know, let's look at how we welcome people from different backgrounds, ages, genders, and think about how we utilize their skills and their talent to make our communities stronger. You know, Brother Cameron just, you know, mentioned the challenges that we're facing, and only by strengthening those people within our communities wider than just a traditional sense is how we're going to really thrive going forward, and also enable people to take up challenges in wider society. You know, politics and lots of things was mentioned, but only by being supportive and encouraging are we going to be able to find our way in society. We are here to stay, we are British, and we need to be making our mark in British society. But we need the support, and especially women need the support to be able to do that with confidence and in a way that's welcoming. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah khair. And literally a Quranic verse, oh, not verse of the Quran, well, I do think it's a verse of the Quran, came to mind as you said that. And we created you into nations and groups so that you may what? Know one another, mashallah. Right, okay, so, and I think that's very important. My next question is to Professor Adila Sharif. You have led critical partnership work. Our institutions don't operate in a bubble. How do we build better civil society partnerships?
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? I'm usually loud enough without a mic, but I will use one in the interest of being the same as everybody else. Thank you for that question. Yes, so if I may be so bold, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the work that we do in Bristol as a way of building some of those partnerships and offer a tangible example. So I'm here in my sort of space as a member of the Bristol Muslim Strategic Leadership Group. Apologies for that big long name. We do shorten it to BMSLG, and we did practice how to say it even as an organization, so it was quick. But the reason what we do in Bristol, and in order to do to build communities, the two things that I think are really important are, and I've been said before actually by Sheikh Noura earlier on, which was to get organized. And Cameron said it as well, to be connected and integrated. And I think actually those two things are more powerful than we think. To be organized and then to be connected creates social capital. And when we've got social capital, we all have access to far more than we have on our own. So that was what the genesis of BMSLG was about. And actually it was 10 years in the making, because for 10 years we talked about having such an organization, because that's what we do. And then we had a realization that actually we need to do something to put it together. Now, the key parts of that were developing strategic partnerships with the local authority, the local police, the NHS, the local universities. And the aim for that was to be able to speak to them as a group of diverse Muslim communities that we are in Bristol. So our organization consists of volunteers from the different Muslim groups or communities, including white British, black British, Somali, British Pakistanis, some Bangladeshis, Arabs, Turkish, and Syrian as well. And we pride ourselves on being gender balanced, and we do this not by accident, but we do it deliberately. So if we expect people to unproblematically join us, it doesn't work like that. We have to engage them and make deliberate efforts to invite people to join us from all these different backgrounds. And one of the things you had a question for Yasmin here was about gender. And how to encourage women to be more involved. And we do, and I'm sure, like many women in this room, you have been in a room full of gentlemen, and often are the only woman representing other women. And the number of times I've had gentlemen say, please, sister, could you help us bring more women to this organization? And I say, yes, of course, but you know something? You can do that much better than me. And the way you do that is you encourage your own wives, your sisters, your daughters to come. I can't go to your house to do that. I'd have to still knock on the door. You've got the key to your own door. So really the challenge is, what do we do ourselves? And again, we've had some talk about that, is reflect on what we are doing. Don't ask somebody else to do it. Let's do it ourselves. So that's the sort of first thing with getting women involved. But the key thing for building those civic institutions and organizations really is to bring strength and work to build your organization. Far too quickly, we want to get out there and do the work. But actually the work is in building your organization, investing in your people. We're a volunteer group, and we will take every free bit of training or development on offer for all our members, because, you know, that's the only way we are going to develop ourselves. Same, we were talking about mosques, and the brother here has done an incredible bit of research on imams and mosques across the country, and I recognize everything that he's saying. And the imams have a lot of work to do. And certainly in Bristol, we feel often mosques and imams are put under the spotlight, sometimes negatively and unfairly, without the support necessarily needed to support them to develop themselves. So I do say that sometimes as community members, we don't really give them a fair chance. And actually, again, it comes back to it. How do we do things better ourselves? So we had the same problem as BMSLG in Bristol, where it was felt that we were in competition with our other fellow Muslim organizations. And it's taken us at least 5 years for just a few of them to realize that we're not competitors. In fact, we are champions of their work. And that wasn't by me standing at the front of a stage and telling them that we are champions, but was by doing it. And slowly and surely, they're coming round to the idea that actually we're there for them, and we're there for each other. And that is quite something new for them, and they're still getting their head around it. And it is a big challenge. So I would say that whilst we have broader challenges, we've got internal challenges within our own communities about coming together. The quicker we get organized, the quicker we reach out and connect with each other, actually the quicker we can get on that road to developing our communities, to be those integrated citizens of this country. And we're here to stay. Nobody's going anywhere. Even if we get a bit of a brain drain, we still got plenty of brain still in this country, in our communities, to carry on. So that would be my thoughts on that one. I hope that answered your question. I think I forgot the question, in fact.
Beautifully. The question was, how do we build better civil society partnerships? And I think that was beautifully answered. And once again, another verse comes to mind. Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change themselves. That's literally what was ringing, and mashallah, that's so succinct, so succinct. Right, so my final question would be to Dr. Riaz Timol. Based on your findings, what really needs to change for institutions to support young people like myself and many others in the future?
Okay, so that's a nice, easy, simple question then. I think, as I mentioned in the talk, the project itself focused specifically on the figure of the imam as a mosque-based leader. And so I think my comments will be restricted to that particular sub-niche within the broader category of religious leaders in British Islam. So you could look at the broader category of ulama in general, and then you can look at those who are offering different types of religious support or care or guidance, such as Muslim chaplains, for example. There is some work which has argued, and this is actually something that we discovered in terms of our findings, that there is a shift in terms of the pastoral care and the counselling elements are being developed by imams within mosques. However, that tends to happen in a very sporadic and haphazard way. In other words, individual imams are left to their own devices, and some of them who are motivated by a passion to serve really kind of roll up their sleeves and commit themselves, engage with the needs of their community, whether it's young people, whether it's converts, whether it's non-South Asians in a majority South Asian community. They really kind of go the extra mile, and we did find examples of imams who go above and beyond. And one of the things that we're keen to do, because there's so much negativity and because there's a lot of bad news stories regarding imams which tend to proliferate in the mainstream media and in public consciousness, we want to try and counteract that by shining a spotlight on good news stories. And I think we should have the courage and the autonomy to be able to take ownership of our own narrative. And so by conducting this research with Muslims, by Muslims, for Muslims, we're hoping to be able to shape the discourse regarding British Muslim leadership in mosques. So what, in terms of the specific question that you asked, what changes can be made, there are examples of good news stories. There are imams who are going above and beyond. There are imams who are really, I would actually say, are the unsung heroes of British Islam, in the sense that they're overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, undervalued, but day in and day out, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they may receive a call from somebody who's been the victim of domestic abuse. They might have a call from parents whose child has run away. They might have a call from somebody who's addicted to drugs or alcohol, and just kind of intuitively responding to that situation with empathy. They attempt to do it in the best way they can. Having said that, I think there's much more that we can do as a community to invest in developing the institutional infrastructures to be able to provide the specific skills and the repertoire of experiences which would help imams to serve their communities much more effectively. And I think that's a collective responsibility upon all of us. And so, in a sense, it's like a kifaya, where it's, if all of us take that responsibility seriously, then the whole community can benefit. As I mentioned in the talk, an individual imam, there's potential exponential impact there. So if you upskill one individual, there's an entire community that can benefit from that. So I would probably boil it down to 3 things which are related, again, to the talk that I gave. Number 1, there needs to be an improvement in working conditions. There needs to be contractual security. Imams need to be paid more than the national minimum wage. And the sad reality is that there are imams who are being paid less than the national minimum wage, which is technically illegal. But that is the situation in many communities. And then we expect them to marry us, to bury us, to go above and to teach our children and to provide pastoral care. But we're not willing to actually invest resources in providing working conditions which enable them. So if you think of it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if your basic needs are not taken care of, then that person is not going to be able to give the best of himself to the community. So I think that's one thing that we can do. And secondly, I think we should, on the basis of our findings, we discovered a massive appetite for CPD. And so I think there is potential here, completely independent from government, but as a grassroots, organic, dynamic, bottom-up initiative based upon what imams themselves have told us, things like mental health, relationship counseling, these things should be, there should be forms of CPD which are available for imams, courses that they can do where they can actually upskill themselves and then they can serve their communities in a much more effective and impactful way.
Thank you so much. I think one of the key things, once again, I'm taking from that is the importance of organisation in order to be able to facilitate and empower imams to be able to empower us. And I think that's so important. I love the point you made where you mentioned that there's a lot of negatives out there, and it's important that those positives be highlighted so we don't miss it, especially to the younger generation. Allahumma barak. Okay, so we are going to do closing remarks. Because of time, we're not going to be able to take questions from the audience. However, I believe our guests are going to be around for the day. So are you okay for people to approach you and ask questions? So they are still here to definitely connect and ask any further questions. So I'd like to take closing remarks, starting with our honourable guest at the end.
Jazakallah khair. I guess just some advice. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Innama a'malu binniyat." Verily, actions are judged by intentions. You know, so any work that we do, we need to make sure that our intentions are sound and correct, right? Otherwise, we won't really achieve the real barakah and the benefit that we want, which is Jannah. Secondly, we need to think big. The Prophet ﷺ was an optimist. When Abu Bakr as-Siddiq walked in on the Prophet ﷺ one day, he said, "Are you thinking of taking on Rum? Are you thinking of taking on the Romans?" Sorry. So we need to think big. And then we need to have sabr. Allah says, Inna Allah ma sabirun. Verily, Allah is with those who are sabirun, who have sabr. It means that you're going to face difficulties, you're going to have problems. Allah's going to test us. There's going to be imtihans, fitan, problems, issues. We have to have sabr. Inna Allah ma sabirun. And if we have that sabr, Allah will take care of the issues for us. We don't need to worry about it. Allah will take care of it. Yeah? Allah is with you. Allah is not just watching and seeing, Allah is taking care of the problem for you. And lastly, it's not about achieving the vision. We can set the big vision, but it's not always about achieving the big vision. It's about our conduct on the path to that vision. It's about doing the right thing. It's about making sure that we don't fall to the wayside when there's pressure, that we follow Quran and Sunnah in our lives, and when those difficulties happen, and we don't fall to the wayside. That's the test. It's not about achieving the output. It's about your conduct on the path to that output. Inshallah.
Anyway, yeah, thank you very much. And then next we have Yasmin, please.
Jazakallah khair. I guess when you look at gender equality and feminism, in its true sense, it's an Islamic concept. So we need to go back to the Sunnah, to the teachings in the Quran, and recognize what that is telling us and embody that within all that we do. And today's conference, alhamdulillah, is about leading change together. And what better example from the MCB? We have Sister Zara, first female, youngest person, a Scot, leading this organization. We have an epitome of what we should be doing, inshallah. So let's follow that example and work together. There's hope for our communities, and stay united and stay strong, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Professor Adida.
Rahma, may I ask if I take a question from the audience as my final remark? You can say no.
I don't think so. I'm so sorry.
There we go. We all get told off, even if we're at the front.
Sorry.
So my closing remarks, the only reason I wanted to ask a question from the audience is because as an academic, we always like the lead to come from the floor, yes. And I feel that I've done the leading here already. But let me just presume then what somebody may have asked, and I think somebody may have asked, what was your biggest challenge perhaps in setting up the BMSLG or to get organized in your city? And I would say that the biggest challenge was getting started. So what I would do is present a challenge to you, everybody, in this conference hall. You've all come here today because there's something about this conference, there's something about the MCB that has made you want to be here today, and most of it must be related to leading change together. And many of you are probably in leadership positions in whatever capacity that you work in. So I would say that if you want to get organized, now is the time. Don't put it off till tomorrow. Don't do what we did, be 10 years in the making. Say you're going to go home and do it now and set down your action plan of what you're going to do. Think about the key people. You've already got those key people in your city, in your communities that are sitting there with those skills and the expertise. Bring them together, because when you come together, you will be stronger rather than on your own. So bring those skill sets in your city together, sit round a table and devise it. And if you want anything from us in Bristol, do get in touch, and we'd be very happy to share what we did, and you can have a go yourself. So that would be my final remarks is get organised, get started, and get connected.
Well done. That's absolutely amazing. And once again, starting with intention, look for examples, get organised, and last but not least...
I think I'll leave you with a couple of inspirational quotes which have benefited me in my life. I think they're both from Rumi, actually. So the first is, "You were born with wings." Why do you insist on crawling your way through life? And the second is, what does the ant know about the pattern of the rug upon which it walks? And so if you think of the old Persian rugs, very intricate, elaborate patterns, and sometimes we get lost in the micro detail and we forget that there's a macro picture. And so even though things disintegrate into chaos around us, we nevertheless maintain the internal fortitude and strength to remain committed to our principles and our values, which are derived from our faith and which actually enriches and which enhances. I'm very proud to be a Muslim, alhamdulillah. It's a blessing for me. And I don't think anyone should hide their light behind the bushel. We should be proud of who we are and just commit ourselves to living lives of ethical excellence, which are derived from the principles of our faith. And slowly but surely we'll see ourselves soaring as a community. You were born with wings. Why insist on crawling your way through life? So if we have the commitment and the sincerity, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, assist one another in righteousness and piety, become blind to the faults of others. One of the words of guidance which I remember from a spiritual elder is, God gave you two eyes. One is to see the good qualities in other people, and the other is to focus in on your own bad qualities. And so that's a nice principle to have. So I'll leave you with, it's a privilege to be with so many change makers here. So my final words would be just keep up the good work. Jazakallah khair.
Can we give a round of applause to our audience, everyone? Thank you so much to Kamran Hussain, Yasmin Surti, Professor Adila Sharif, and Dr. Riyaz Timur. Once again, I'm taking away intention, looking to examples, organization, soaring and reflecting. Thank you very much. Allahumma barak, everyone.
Can we continue with the applause, please? Because we had a very, very brilliant session. A lot of actions, a lot of things for us to think of. We're now going to play a very important message from MCA. I'm now going to ask your attention to the screens on either side.
The Muslim Community Association, also known as the MCA, is a grassroots social organisation set up to encourage and facilitate Muslims to become active participants in society. The MCA is a unique assembly of respected Muslim personalities, scholars and community workers who are striving to build an all-inclusive society. The MCA aims to bring about a spiritual, moral and social renewal and demonstrate the benefits of faith-based values. This is achieved by proactively encouraging and facilitating Muslims to uphold civic responsibilities as citizens of Britain. We train and develop our members and volunteers so that they can work within our outreach activities and our collective community endeavours. Working in partnership with other organisations, we are removing barriers to accessing education, jobs, public services and other causes of social injustice. At the heart of MCA are our principles, by which we are guided. They are the Quran, Sunnah and our cherished Islamic heritage. The vision of MCA is to aspire for a fair, just and harmonious society where Muslims are an integral part of the community and at the same time are able to uphold and maintain their religious identity, working for the common good. Our goal is to play an effective role in shaping the policies at a national level.
When I look at the amount of croissants that are still left on the table, I know what everybody is thinking. When is lunch? So as we ask you to move on to the expo area, because the group prayers will start at 1:25. Lunch will be served immediately after. Until then, can I ask you to please move on to the expo area and in particular, check out the mention at the back of the main hall. Now, irrespective of where we are at the moment, we will want to start at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. is BST and not the other time that we all know about but are afraid to say. Can we please start at 2 p.m. and surprise ourselves? Yes? Now, at 2 p.m., and I ask you to please listen to this bit too, At 2 p.m., you will go directly to the workshops. There are 2 sets. So please see the timings in your program with the locations. Remember, you can only go to a total of 2 workshops. So if you've come with another person, it may be worth considering taking advantage, you can split it and taking advantage of different topics and expertise. So we'll have 2 workshops running at the same time and 2 different workshops after the initial one. So in the main hall, you will have Inspiring Stories for Change and What Next for Future Entrepreneurs workshop. And in the lounge will be set next to the expo area will be the Women and Resilience workshop and What Next for Making Changes in Community Leadership. I encourage you to please check out our lovely people at the man shed and move on to the expo area where you have all the stalls and enjoy your lunch today, proudly brought in by My Lahore. Thank you very much for your time. So this is a quick message to those who are not here but watching us from home. Jazakallah for joining us. We are now breaking for prayers and lunch. We will be back at 2 p.m. BST. Thank you.